Welcome to part 2 of my video review for The Stand. Spoilers ahead, the 2020 miniseries. Okay, so what I'd like to talk about first is what the series actually did correctly and what they did right. I like that the new miniseries included parts from the book that were not included in the original miniseries, and they did give an effort to include those scenes or chapters, however you would like. An example with that would be Nadine in the planchette. In the original miniseries, they did not include that. Nadine, how she becomes first interacting with Flag was back in college and in the books, and her college roommates and that played with the Ouija board, the planchette, and Nadine played with it, and spirits got in touch with her, and that's how she became interacted with Flag. And then years later, she contacts Flag again using the planchette, and that's where Flag tells her to go to Harold and stuff like that. So I'm glad they included that as well. I'm really glad they included the dreams with Flag and Nick and Flag and Larry. Because in the books, Flag tries to tempt Larry and tempt Nick. And once again, that was missing from the original miniseries. They had touched a little bit on it, but not, I think they missed out on that. So with this version, they had the temptation of Flag trying to tempt Larry and trying to tempt Nick. And I like that they included that because I think that's was an important part to the story. Other than that, I did like the inclusion of something that was not in the book. And that was a character, I can't even remember her name because this miniseries was hard to watch. She's on the bad side of things, and she's kind of Lloyd Henry's co-worker, whatever. She's the head of entertainment in Vegas. I think the actress did a phenomenal job and pulled off the part really well, being semi-crazy and just being maybe not even crazy, but the way she portrayed the role, I thought it was a good character, that it was too bad that character couldn't have been in the book because she pulled it off really well. That being said, there's a lot of negatives about Vegas that I'm going to get into, but that's about all the good stuff they really did. Glenn, the character of Glenn, they did okay, and I'll get more into the character parts in a different part. But just to say, the characters that were done the best were Harold, Stu, and Glenn. That's about it. Let's move on to the music. The music was horrid of this series. The music selections I didn't agree with. They just did not fit the atmosphere of the show, except for Don't Fear the Reaper. That was okay. That fit the essence of the show. They had it in the original miniseries, which I liked as well. It still fits this series today, but the rest of the songs, the music just didn't make a whole lot of sense because a lot of the music took you out of the moment. I wish I could remember the exact scene I'm thinking of, but I do remember it happened near the end of one of the episodes. It was a later episode, maybe episode 6 or 7, maybe even 8. Where something emotional happens, where you're supposed to have a negative reaction like sadness or depression or worry. And they did an okay job with that. But then like 2 seconds after you've had time to just digest that scene, they come out with this corny music. And then it kind of goes on either one other scene or it ends the episode, but it takes you out of that moment. So you don't have time to digest the emotional connection you're supposed to have with the scene and the story. And, it just takes you out. And a lot of the music in this show does that. And it's a shame too, because watching movies and TV, music can be a very powerful influencer in how it affects you emotionally. And it's an easy way, if done properly, to express how the characters are feeling without them actually showing you very well how they're feeling. And they failed at it miserably. It would have been a way to save a lot of this, would have been to do the music properly. So unfortunately, there's that. One of the other biggest problems of the entire series was the flashbacks. Some people may have liked it. Not a lot of reviewers that I've liked it. It was a good concept, except this is a story it did not work with. If it was a full-fledged TV series where it was going to go on for years and years and seasons, maybe. It's not one of those shows. It's not This Is Us. It wasn't meant to be shown that way. They took a stab at it, and I think they fell flat on their face. What I mean by that is the very first 2.5 episodes, they do flashback sequences. So the very beginning of The Stand, episode 1, they show Harold Lauder in the future, in the free zone, dumping bodies like he does in the novel. It's a great scene, and they're very true to the book with it. They go in the church, he throws up outside, and one of his best friends at the time is trying to console him and that kind of thing. And so the scene was done well, but then it flashes back to Harold in the past. Like I said, it sounds like a good idea. The problem is that you lose a lot of emotional journey with that character. So it goes in the past and shows how, his family neglects him, that kind of thing. And then he's bullied. He has an infatuation with Franny, but it's not shown a whole lot. Like the things happen so quickly. It's almost like you have to have seen The Stand before in order to stay caught up with these characters, because you can miss a lot. And that's the other thing too. Getting out of the flashback moment, I'll slide back into it, is I don't know who they're making this for. If they're making it for people that have seen The Stand already and think that they want something different and a new experience, you're wrong. Because I personally, and I could be wrong, but a lot of the reviewers that I've watched, they seem to think the same thing. We don't want different. We don't need different. Like I said earlier, a book is popular for a reason. So to change things or to try to give it the Tarantino treatment, which that's losing. I don't like saying that because Tarantino doesn't do a lot of flashbacks. He just does things out of order. But there's more flashbacks with this. So you just lose the emotional connection. The flashbacks, unfortunately, do that. I'll get more into that with the characters in the next part. Along with the flashbacks before I do that, if it's for new viewers, I know I talked about if The Stand is for people that have seen it already, thinking, and the creators thought they just want a new experience. They were wrong. We don't. We want the same thing, just done better. When it comes to new people, I can understand maybe a few of them liking it, but in the genre of apocalyptic stories, other stories are done so much better with movie and TV that this is an embarrassment to that. So I can't see a lot of people that have not had an encounter with The Stand liking this adaptation just because of how it was done. So I don't know, maybe I need to find more reviewers that have no experience with The Stand and have watched it for the first time, because I'm curious to see if they liked it or not. But getting back to the flashbacks, they do the flashbacks in episode 2 with Larry, and then again a little bit here and there with Nick in episode 3, and then maybe I'm missing a couple of things. But that's as much time as I'll talk about the flashbacks. The other thing is no dreams. The dreams were a big part of the book. They didn't talk a lot about the dreams. Just the temptations with Nick and Larry, a little bit with Mother Abigail. That's it. If I remember correctly, the only ones that had dreams were the main characters. They really didn't talk about the side characters having the dreams, other than maybe just saying, yeah, everyone had the dreams, but you didn't see a lot of detail with them. They're very forgetful in the overall story. Like, you almost forget that they happened. And like I said, it was such a big part of the book, and for obvious reasons, because it brought people to Mother Abigail or Randall Flagg. And they missed out on explaining that entirely and displaying it. So that was a big letdown. Disconnection with the plague. It was another problem, because they did the flashback sequences. You saw Harold in the free zone and then it showed him in the past. And whenever they do the flashbacks, the plague's already happening. So every character, the plague is already happening for them, with the exception of one scene, and that's with Stu at the gas station when Campion crashes the car, because obviously the plague hasn't stopped by that point. And Campion at the when they do finally show Campion in the government facility, and the plague breaks loose, they show that a little bit, but that's in like episode 2 or 3 by that point, probably 3. So by that point you're already introduced to the characters, you already know, you know, the world goes to shit. They spend hardly any time on the plague itself, and so by doing that and doing the flashbacks, you miss out on a lot, because in the books the plague took on more of a character. When Stephen King, the first whole part of the book is about the downfall of humanity, with the plague, the military, the government, the misinformation, the secrecy, disinformation, and the characters involved with that, along with the main characters riding this journey through the plague. And they skip it. They basically skip it. I mean, they still have a couple scenes where they're dealing with it, but there's no drama, no suspense, no emotional connection, because because the very first scene of the show, they show the free zone. So you know Harold makes it. So there's no suspense or anything, because you know he makes it. And that's the problem when it comes to these people that have never seen The Stand before. I guess what the writers and the director were going for was maybe to have you wonder, okay, how did he make it to the free zone? How did he become the way he was? And the other characters, how did they, you know, change, that kind of thing? But it didn't make the way they portrayed the characters, it didn't make you think that. It didn't make you wonder that at all. It didn't make me wonder it at all. Maybe that's because I already knew, but I don't know. I don't think so. And another example with that would be the traveling zoo. In the book, they had a traveling zoo that Fran, Harold, Glenn, and Stu ran into on the road, which was a bunch of guys holding a bunch of women captive. It's pretty brutal. They have a shootout, and they make it, of course, you know, the good guys make it, of course. They do put that in this mini-series, but it's one guy with 2 women in a truck, that and it's just Harold and Fran. At least they included it, but the problem is they've already shown Harold and Fran in the free zone. You know they make it. There's no suspense, there's no drama, there's no reason to worry if these characters are going to make it out of this situation, because you already know they do. And that, another problem with the connection, talking more about the character of Harold, is when you see him at the beginning, he's in the free zone, it goes back, and then the next time you see him in the free zone, he sees Franny, who's very pregnant and with Stu, and Harold hates Stu, and he's very upset, and you could tell. And like I said, I think they want you to wonder why he's like that, but you don't have that emotional connection yet with the character, so it doesn't enter your mind a whole lot. You're still trying to digest the whole situation about what's going on before you get to the character's emotional connections. So anyway, I'm going to end part 2 there, and the next part will continue on with what we got next.